Hello everybody and welcome to episode 185 of the TheSixthAxis podcast. As per usual, I am your host Chris Lipscomb. Joining me this week is a man with a new iMac, Kev. Hello Kev.
Hey!
You excited?
Yeah, really excited.
I'm so glad because I thought when you were slightly late I was like, oh, is his computer broken? I was getting ready to shout at you.
No,
but
quite the opposite.
It's all good.
Do you know what's really weird?
What?
It doesn't make any noise.
Oh, that is creepy.
My old computer sounds like it's going to take off.
It hasn't got fans and that.
Yeah.
Fucking weird, man. Also with us this week is from Groundshatter Games and a developer of a game that we're going to be discussing tonight called SkyScrappers is James Parker. Say hello, James.
Hello, everybody.
It's wonderful to have you on. Thank you for joining us this
week.
Hi,
James.
Thanks for having me. It's lovely to be here.
It's great.
Well, let's just, you may not be saying that by the end, so see how it goes.
Well, it's lovely to be here for now.
Yeah.
That's better.
I like just quickly pull it back in. Quickly on the Twitters, Kevling says hello.
Hello.
Pasky says greetings.
And
Peter Chapman, who was here last week, says hello.
I'm not talking to him.
You're not talking to him, why?
I don't know. Just don't feel like he deserves it.
Reasonable.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say hello to Peter. Hello, Peter.
Oh, that's good. Do you know Peter?
No. I just thought I'd fill the gap.
Just be polite. It's lovely. I like it. Right, let's shift into the news for this week.
News.
No
news.
soundboard. Right.
Yeah, my new iMac means I don't have a soundboard this week. Sorry, listeners. I know it's your favourite part of the show.
It's fine. It's fine. It's my least favourite part of the show.
How rude. That is my identity you're talking about.
So quickly in the news. First up this week, there is a brilliant bug in the PlayStation 4 firmware 2.55, where if you try and if you have the PS4 in rest mode and you press eject, it will crash your PS4.
Wow.
Which is just impressive in a way.
Yeah, that seems risky. I wouldn't have put that in actually. I don't think that's a good feature.
It's my second favourite bug of the week. My favourite bug of the week I've discovered this week is in the BBC iPlayer update on iOS, where if you try and play any video, it hard crashes the app.
Huh.
Which is...
Isn't that kind of its key feature?
It's mostly the point of iPlayer, if I'm honest. But yeah, it's kind of impressive that these kind of bugs sneak in. The weird thing is it's something like if you turn off auto login, then your PS4 does not hard crash. So you get like, when you get the free beeps that it's deaded. Yeah, it does that.
Well, I'll remember that because I'm all of those things. I fit the criteria perfectly.
Yeah, but it's only if you press the eject button. It's not if you.
It's still in rest mode.
Yeah, I think if you press the eject button and then you insert a disc again, but the PS4 doesn't recognize the disc until you restart it. It's some lunacy like that.
I see.
It's impressive. Like it's oh no, so you get the free beeps. So you if you put it in, it won't recognize your disc, and then you get the triple beep after that. So lovely. It's just lovely. And we have TSA. It was quite interesting because there were several people in TSA trying to replicate it the other day, doing proper QA on it, and it was very amusing. Just different people with different firmwares installed with different config. It was great. Other quick bit of news: Ubisoft have learnt from their mistakes with the Watch Dogs experience apparently, and have decided not to overpromise, which is great. It's great that
unless that in itself was an overpromise.
Yes, if they've been like, oh shit, we've overpromised that we're not going to overpromise anything. We really need to promise less.
We've been overstating how much we're promising things.
Exactly.
It's got a kind of meta vibe to it.
As we all know, Watch Dogs was a bit of a mess when it released, and all Ubisoft games from last year really. Valiant Hearts was the only one that kind of wasn't. That's about it. Everything else is pretty much fucked. So it's working. Well, they're trying to get their stuff to be nice now. They want it to be good, and they also there's an interesting trend that we picked up on in this news piece as well, that people are not like releasing CGI trailers for games that are out in 3 years as much anymore. That's a much less prevalent thing now. It's out in like 6 months to a year, and here's gameplay.
Yeah, that seems good.
Well, then you can't get angry really. I mean, what do you prefer, James? Do you prefer a good old CGI trailer, or would you rather just see the gameplay?
I think I'd rather see the gameplay most of the time.
I think most people would.
I can understand it a kind of a year, 18 months ahead of time if you're doing a big E3 reveal and you're like, we want to sell a new franchise,
Yeah.
then go all out on the CGI because you're introducing a world rather than the game itself. But
Absolutely.
the closer you get to the release, then the more it has to be real gameplay because that's what people want to see.
Oh, apart from Warhammer 40k Dawn of War, in which the intro cinematic is like the best thing about the whole game. I mean, the game's fine, but like the intro cinematic is like everything you've ever wanted 40k to be.
And then you were like, "Oh, the rest of this is slightly disappointing."
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with you, James. Like, if you're going to be a way out from it, then you kind of have to go CGI just because the gameplay is not there yet. Like, you probably haven't got a particularly impressive vertical slice ready to go at that point. But if as you get closer, people do get a bit frustrated if you're still not showing gameplay. But I do like this trend of kind of announcing games closer to release, just because it's nice, you know. You like, hey, this game you're gonna be able to play it soon, rather than you're going to play this at some point in the future. Don't worry. I think the best part was EA last year, though. When EA last year were like, hey, BioWare are working on a thing. You can tell us what the thing is? No. That's just fantastic.
News of the year. Game studio working on game.
Yeah. That's just brilliant stuff.
I think the other thing with CGI trailers and things now is that as soon as they go onto TV, they have to have those banners on them saying this is not gameplay footage.
Yes.
And then that undermines the whole thing and it makes it look like it's going to be a mobile game because you get all those CGI Clash of Clans videos now. So the thing that console games and big PC releases have for them now is that they actually look amazing. So why not show off the thing that looks amazing rather than make up the thing that also looks amazing? It's crazy.
Yeah, like we're going to talk about it in a little while, but I've been playing Batman again, and Batman looks incredible. Like the everything about that city looks absolutely amazing. You can showcase that. If your game looks like that, show that to me. The stuff that they showed in the Tomb Raider demo, although we criticised it for basically showing the worst parts of the last Tomb Raider game in the new Tomb Raider, but like it still looks incredible. Like the same for the Uncharted 4 demo. Like that game looks amazing and it's clearly so dynamic that you can just show us that, and that's what's really going to sell your game. People are not going to be really sold on it unless it's already a big franchise. They're not really going to be sold on it based on a single game, like a non-gameplay demo. They're not going to be like, yeah, that CGI trailer looks fine. Probably get that. No one is really into that. People want to see how it's going to play, and we're getting there. I think we're pushing towards it. It's a good thing in my opinion. Final quick bit of news. The guy from Lizard Squad, Julius Kivimäki, has faced trial in Finland recently. He was convicted on 50,000 counts, I believe, which is just...
Of what?
Of harassment.
Murder, that would be pretty bad.
No, 50,000... so he was charged on 50,000 offences, including online harassment, fraud, and data breaches. Which, interesting as well. So these were the guys who brought down the PSN and Xbox Live with DDoS attacks at Christmas time. He wasn't actually convicted for any of those particularly. These were related to hacking into MIT, Harvard University, creating botnets, and using stolen credit cards, as well as, I believe, general abuse of people via social media.
Sounds like a fun guy.
Sounds charming, doesn't he? But he is apparently not going to serve time in prison. He is serving a 2-year suspended sentence. So unless he fucks up, he's basically not going to go to prison. But it'll be interesting to see if he faces charges over anything else. The interesting thing as well is, if you recall with this story, John Smedley, who was worked for Sony Online Entertainment at the time, this was the guy who brought down his plane by calling in a bomb threat about his flight. And also published a load of kind of general information about the guy online. He has tweeted that he's not particularly happy that the guy has not gone to prison for this, and also hasn't been charged over the attacks on the PlayStation Network and Xbox Live, as well as kind of the threats that brought his plane out of the air. Which I would also be annoyed about that. Like, the guy fucked up your life even in a relatively small way. It would be cool if he faced some repercussions for that. That would be a good thing.
Yeah.
But he's already been charged with 50,000 counts of things. It would only be like 3 or 4 extra counts.
That's true. 50,000 is also like, you don't hear that kind of thing in the news very often. You don't often hear you've been charged with 50,000. You don't even hear 1,000 of something.
Yeah.
So that's impressive. I guess maybe we're going to start hearing that in Cybercrime a lot more, because it's the kind of thing where you catch people a long time later, like after they've done a bunch of shit. Right, that is it for the news. It's time to move on to what we did this week.
What we did.
We've got
sort of what the soundboard sounds like.
Got high production values here this week.
Yeah.
So the main thing we wanted to talk about this week is James, you're currently making a game called SkyScrappers, which I've played an early build of, and I didn't get to play it, but I saw it when you were exhibiting it at Res earlier in the year as well.
And I've been sent a link to a video of it, so
yeah.
It's almost as good.
It's basically the same thing.
I mean, I haven't watched the video yet, but I've got the link.
You got the link just sitting there.
Yeah.
So for people who haven't played SkyScrappers or haven't seen anything of it, would you like to quickly describe it to the audience?
Yeah, it's a local multiplayer competitive platform fighting game set in a series of collapsing buildings, essentially.
Yeah, that's pretty much sums up what I played of it and what I've seen.
It tries to capture the spirit of kind of 80s cartoons and arcade games. So it's got a very simple control scheme, one stick, 2 buttons, very quick playtime, and it kind of looks like a Saturday morning cartoon thing come to life, basically.
I'd also argue it kind of captures the ridiculous fights that you see in action movies a lot more than any other game does, really. Because it's just a bit bonkers. Oh yeah,
it's based on an utterly absurd premise that characters can successfully jump between bits of falling concrete to get to the roof of a building that is already falling down.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I wanted to do it. I wanted to make a game that was not grounded in anything other than a kind of joy of doing something that only existed in these kind of crazy worlds that we've come to know and like.
It's got a very anime vibe to it.
Yes, it's got that kind of Western version of anime, I suppose.
Yeah.
Part of the reason that I wanted to make it was because I wanted to work with the artist who's working on it, who's called Tom Waterhouse, who kind of loves that style of stuff. And I kind of wanted to find a project that would mean that he was kind of excited enough to join in with it and charge me a lot less than he normally would.
I think what I really like as well, though, is that you've got this game that is kind of about buildings being destroyed, but it's got this really vibrant, happy tone to the art style. It's like the art style is this very upbeat palette that you don't see in, not no games, but you don't see it in as many games these days. And it's kind of a nice juxtaposition between the setting and this just really, as you say, kind of cartoony art style and this very like lovely, upbeat, happy palette that you've got going there in the art.
Yeah, the kind of building destruction is kind of secondary. To them, it's just an extreme sport. They find these buildings that are being destroyed, meet up at them, and then kind of race to the top. Yeah. It's not a kind of destructive thing to do. It's just taking advantage of a kind of weird environmental feature that they can do that. But yeah, I mean that's kind of back to the arcade thing. I was kind of Mega Drive games and Amiga games, and that they were not dark grey and brown.
Exactly.
They were primary colours and fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. From what I've played of it, it's one of those games that is very quick to get into, and then you can master it eventually. But it's so easy to get into it. In almost like Jump Kick in a way. It kind of reminds me of Jump Kick a little bit, in that you've got this like super simplified control scheme, much simpler than most other fighting games, where it's just a 2-button control scheme. You've got jump and attack. And then you're obviously moving between the elements in the world that are falling on you on this 2D plane. But I mean, did you go for that simplified control scheme deliberately because you've kind of got that slight more complex than you do in other fighting games with the platforming elements?
Yeah, it was partly because that's quite a nice constraint to have as a game designer, to say, what can I do that could be played on a classic upright arcade cabinet. Yeah. But also it's kind of I know that as a small studio we can't compete with the likes of Street Fighter 4 and 5 and Mortal Kombat X in terms of move sets and complexity of the actual fighting. So what SkyScrappers tries to do is make it more about the movement. So whilst there's a fighting element in there and you can knock people off, and that's your kind of main thing to do. Actually,
yeah,
the way that you become better than other players is by being better at the platforming side of things, I suppose, and that gives you a much greater range of things that you can do with the controls, even though there's only a couple of buttons involved.
The idle animations are very nostalgic, kind of Mega Drive, like way over kind of the movement of them, like in their fighting stances or whatever, is so exaggerated. It's got a real kind of vibe of kind of fighters gone by.
Yeah, we wanted to do that kind of thing. Tom loves King of Fighters and Street Fighter and all of those kind of classic sprite-based fighting games. But we didn't want to take the kind of pixel art route. We wanted it to be kind of lush and high res and what have you, but with a hand-drawn and animated style. Because that's what he does really well.
But it really does draw, because you even got stuff like because I was playing through the single player stuff, and where you've got kind of the world map that is the same kind of thing that you see in Street Fighter 2, etc. So as you're saying, like he's a big fan. Are you? Is that kind of where you're drawing your inspiration from as well, or are you coming more at it from the platforming side?
I think I'm kind of the general aesthetic of that arcade era. Most of my kind of fondest childhood memories are going on holiday with my family, and then while it was sunny and they were all on the beach, going into kind of weird, darkened arcades and playing Cyberball and Ivan Iron Man, Stuart Super Off-Road Racer, and all of those kind of big, stupid arcade games.
Yeah.
And just kind of loving that feel of those kinds of things. And my kind of career in the games industry has not kind of crossed over with that before. So I kind of taking advantage of the fact that now I'm independent, I can do what I want basically, and hopefully other people will like that as well.
One of the things I found that really interesting as well is on the gameplay side of things, although it is very much a fighting game, it's a lot less confrontational than other fighting games are. Because as you were talking about earlier, you've got those platforming elements as well, which it kind of makes you go a lot more. You're not going to run at someone because they're going to be sort of jumping in a story higher than you suddenly, and then you're off the screen. And for me, it's a nice decision and kind of breaks the trend of fighting games as well, where you're not constrained to that kind of almost entirely flat plane where you've got, you can jump a little bit, but that's about it. Whereas here, and then by that you're forced to confront the other person. Here, there's a lot more kind of avoidance and almost tactical element to it, in that you've got to be looking where they are and looking ahead so that you're not getting stuff falling on your head as you're coming up as well. And how did you kind of balance the platforming element of it with that fighting game element of it?
It's been quite hard. Weirdly, it's not necessarily been the kind of obvious things that have made a difference to that. A lot of it is just kind of messaging to the player that actually it's better for you as a player to keep moving up the building than it is for you to stand on the ground bashing the other guy with your sword.
Yeah.
And people, and the things we've done to change the game, where you start the level and how fast the buildings move and how the effects are working, all of that kind of sends a message to the player that they should be moving, rather than fighting. And that's ended up with, because we've taken it to various events, and there's kind of lucky enough here in Bristol to have a kind of a local multiplayer meetup. So I've been able to take it to there in kind of lots of different guises over time, and just kind of subtly alter it and see how people respond to it. That's been the kind of most useful thing for balancing the whole game. And the goal has always been to give people the most choice in how they play themselves. And I think that's really working now. And one of the nice things is that it plays very differently with 2 players than it does with 4. And 4's very frantic, and you end up fighting a lot more. Whereas with 2 players, particularly if they're both similarly experienced or similarly good at that kind of game, you can get it. They can move very quickly up the building. So the edge cases really matter. Like hitting a kind of flaming piece of rubble into the other player can turn the tide completely in that kind of circumstance. Whereas in a 4-player game, you're busy fighting with someone else, and someone else jumps into the group, and then suddenly the whole game changes.
The other thing I really enjoyed with it was the way you've kind of got almost, I guess contextual attacking would be the best way to describe it, where what you do depends on kind of, are you on the ground or are you in the air or are you coming at them or etc. Which kind of just gives it this a lot more, for a game that looks very simple and has a very, very simple control scheme compared to other fighters where you'd be kind of inputting long combos. You've still got that kind of dynamic feeling to it in a way. And was that something that you felt kind of was important, that you don't just want it to be, hey, you've got like a sword swipe or whatever? It depends on what else is going on.
Yeah, I think people need and expect there to be more than just one kind of attack.
Yeah,
it's not like the very early kind of scrolling beat 'em ups that just had a punch and a kind of back fist and that was it. And you're like, okay, well, I get this. I can hammer the button, go all the way through, but we've kind of moved beyond that now, which is good. And so yeah, I think I've tried to put in as much as I can without kind of compromising what it actually is. And we've done a lot in the animation to make it look cool. And there's stuff that happens that you don't particularly notice that other games don't need to do, because all of the rubble and the girders and stuff you jump on, that's all constantly rotating. So every animation has got 3 different versions: one for when it's flat, one for when it's kind of at a slight angle, or one for when it's at a maximum angle. So we've actually got quite a lot of complexity going on just in the basic moving around. And that's before you add in any of the attacks and things like that.
Do you expect players who are new to the game to be able to sort of button bash their way through, or is it something that you're going to need to kind of master to be good at?
It's generally, it seems to take people like one game before they kind of have got the idea of it. And then after that, it becomes a matter of learning the nuances of it. So yeah, I've had events where people have rocked up and like say you saw it at Rezzed, although I didn't play it. We had kids turning up at Rezzed and having exceptionally competitive games straight away, and they were really loving it. And that was kind of a really nice moment, just to stand back, not have to explain anything. Just they picked up controllers. There were 4 of them. They had a whale of the time. The person who won just ran around going, "Yeah, I'm the best." And that was fantastic.
Nice. But what you talk about the rotating stuff, actually, when I was playing, it kind of it surprised me, because it's not because you almost expect it to be, with the design cues, etc., a traditional platformer, and that kind of the physicsy elements aren't something you tend to get in platforming games, and it almost feels like another layer on top of what's already there, that you've not just got to judge, oh, can I make this jump, but can I make this jump and then I'm going to shift the thing because I've run up it and then it's going to start spinning the other way. And do you think it might get a bit much at times, or do you kind of think it really works to the game that you've got that extra layer there as well, compared to most other typical platforms where you kind of don't get that physics interaction with the platforms you jump onto?
Yeah, because the levels aren't designed in that sense. They're not, the stuff is spawned semi-randomly. Then it helps that everything's a bit more fluid. And that was kind of the very core of the original design, was characters standing on spinning platforms, essentially. Okay. So that was one of the first things to get in, whether that made an interesting game, whether we could do an animation system that fitted on top of that. So that's, strangely, that was kind of the first thing that we got in. And then all the other kind of little platforming elements, like the kind of dividers between the different stories of the building, they came along later, because we were finding people were actually just falling right from the top to the bottom quite a lot of the time. So we added in a more of a kind of staging element to it to make the fighting a bit tighter.
I really appreciate that those are there.
Yes, it made a kind of a world of difference to the game, because before those went in, most of the time people were standing on the ground just hitting each other, because that was the easiest thing to do. But yeah, having the ability to stop yourself from falling every couple of stories is just a world of difference.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it also, it feels like a relief when you kind of get to one of those, because you feel like, all right, I've got a point where I know I'm safe for a moment, that I know I'm not going to suddenly cock up here and fall back down and have to kind of quickly jump my way back up the screen. And it really does help for people who are a bit shit like me. But
well, it helps even for people who are moderately not shit like me.
You'd hope a certain level of skill, considering it's your idea.
Well, I mean, that's what I've always said, is that when I play against people and I beat them, it's like the only reason I make games is so I have temporarily a game that I'm better than other people at, because most games I'm pretty rubbish. So I take advantage of this tiny window. And because it's quite a small team, I'm still the best person on the team right now. But back when I was working at bigger companies, I designed games, and then QA would get involved, and QA would be better than me before the end of the first week, and I'd be like, well, what's the point in making this game anymore? I can't get any victory out of it. I may as well just go home.
Throw it away.
That's what I always say, never play against QA, because their job is literally to play that game.
Yeah. The live leaderboards went up at our studio a few weeks ago, and so like now the game that we're developing is like super competitive in-house, and QA easily on top of everything. I like to think I'm pretty close, but then my intern, who's like 16, is doing better than I am, and I feel old.
Yeah, it's always the young people who get you.
Yeah, they've got the reflexes, that's why.
Yeah, fast thumbs.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing I was going to ask you, which is a slightly more technical element, is I noticed that you've built the game in Unity, which is obviously becoming a very common engine now. But how do you find working on 2D in Unity? Because I know it used to be a problem, but it seems to have improved in maybe in the last year or so. They seem to have really kind of doubled down on the 2D elements.
Yeah, it's. I don't think I would have been able to build it in the old sprite system.
Yeah.
Certainly not the inbuilt one. I'd have had to probably buy in a solution. But yeah, it kind of what is now the 2D system within Unity came along at about the right time at the start of the project to start using it. And yeah, I've not had any problems with it. I've worked on plenty of 2D games in other contexts, and it's as good as any solution that I've seen in the most part.
Yeah, it just kind of seemed a little bit bizarre with Unity that they didn't realise that in this kind of really accessible platform that people might not want to make 3D games necessarily.
Well, I think, and I might be wrong on this, but I think historically the reason why Unity existed in the first place was they were filling a gap that on iOS and Mac, that there was no engine that did no engine that did 3D. So they did that, and then everyone started using it, and then it got more popular. And then actually, because people had the knowledge of the engine, they have had to add 2D back in as well, now people are using it, why don't we provide this as a built-in solution as well?
That does make sense. And so you've got this game coming on PC. When is it coming? And other platforms as well?
Not PC initially.
Okay.
Coming out on PS4 and Xbox One.
Cool.
The good ones.
Yeah.
Those new ones.
So, I think there's potential to do a PC version, and but I think the audience have kind of...
PC gaming is dead.
Yeah, you might be the first person who's ever said that.
Yeah.
I think PC owners these days tend to have slightly different expectations of what a game should be and is, and I think if we do a PC version, we might make it a slightly bigger thing with online multiplayer or extra features that make it a little bit more likely to gain some kind of traction, because PC's got a big, difficult market to prod your way into now in a way that the consoles aren't, because discoverability in the console stores seems to be a lot better, and people weirdly seem to kind of give things a bit more of a shot on the smaller games on the consoles.
And also, if you're going for that kind of couch multiplayer, side of things, then console makes a lot more sense than PC, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
there is the single player mode.
Yes, there is.
Bonus,
which is what I was playing, because I was having a quick go at it last night, and a very quick go this evening, just to be able to talk about it. I think my favourite character is Jessica. I like Jessica. She's a bit weird.
Have you noticed that she is a thinly veiled version of the Strider character?
I hadn't, but yes, now that you say it, it is quite obvious. Yeah.
I probably shouldn't have said that because Capcom might beat me out. She's not. I mean, she's only like Strider in the sense she wears purple and she's got like long red hair. That's the only thing that's similar.
No, I like that. You've always got to just pay homage to earlier things.
So you have your roster of 4 characters at the moment. Is there plans to expand?
Yeah, I'd like to. I think if it goes well, then I've already got kind of ideas for other characters. It turns out when you do a map screen, I did the map we put in the map screen quite late for stage selection, and all of the characters at the moment live on a very kind of similar latitude, might be longitude. So I'd like to get some more from the kind of the extremities, so further north and further south, just to make the map screen a bit more interesting.
Yeah, I did kind of notice that actually when I was doing the single player stuff. I was like, this feels a little bit sparse with 4 characters.
An Inuit fighter, that's what you want.
Yeah, perfect.
Not a bad idea. The difficulty is that you have to have people who come from places that have got tall buildings. The Inuit famously have very short buildings.
Yeah, they're quite known for it, aren't they?
It'd be a very short game if you're jumping to the top of a collapsing igloo.
Quick level. Very weird though. What have you got a target release date for this as well, or?
I do, but I'm not saying it
that's fine
in case it's wrong.
You can say no. That's acceptable. We're not going to push you. But I think if you like if you like those kind of arcade fighting games, and if you like games that are definitely, I can see this being a lot of fun to play with your friends. In a way, it almost actually really reminds me of what's it called now? I've forgotten. Gang Beasts. It's got that kind of just the couch multiplayer fighting.
I think it really fills a hole there as well, because there's so little in the way of local co-op stuff or local multiplayer stuff for this generation of consoles at the moment. And so like I've got 2 controllers and friends who would be willing to play couch co-op stuff or couch multiplayer stuff, and there isn't that much available or that much good stuff available. And so like things like this could be really good for, you got your friends around you, pizza and whatever, and just like, let's chuck this on because it's good fun. And so I think that's quite a good gap to fill, and I think that more people should.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree.
I figured you might, to be honest. But I would definitely give it a look in. You can get it's at SkyScrappers. That's not SkyScrapers. It's got 2 P's. Groundshatter.
Like fighting. It's like a play on words.
It's very much like a play on words.
It is. I was going to use the tagline. It's a pun.
That would be amazing.
That's quite a specific humour style. I quite like it.
It's right in our wheelhouse though. That exact style of humour is perfect for us.
It's weird. I didn't realise how bad people were at spelling till I made this game. Whenever I do a Twitter search for SkyScrappers, it's just people misspelling the word skyscrapers. Just a hot pages and pages of it. And it's just deeply disappointing, both in terms of the educational standards of the world and the fact that I can never find anyone talking about my game.
But we'll put links to it in the show notes as well, so you can get hold of it that way. But yeah, it's definitely worth having a look at the video that's available for it right now, because it is a lot of fun. Are you going to be showing it anywhere soon, or?
That's a good question. I'm hoping to have it at EGX in September.
Excellent.
But that's not been arranged yet, so.
Well, if
we shall see.
If you are there, I shall come and lose to you at it.
That would be excellent. Okay. Oh well, I'm down in Brighton next week for Develop.
Oh yeah, well, we both live in Brighton anyway, so
yeah.
I might hit you up in that case. Might come and see you if you're about. Excellent. I'm going to talk about Batman very quickly because I got moaned at for saying I was going to talk about Batman.
With good reason. You spoke about Batman for
we did talk about Batman a lot.
Basically an hour last week.
There's a lot of Batman going on there.
And I still haven't played any, so I can't.
No, James, have you had a look at Batman, or have you been too busy making games?
No, I think I've had a rare opportunity to play some games, so I have actually been playing Batman, which has been good.
Do you like it?
I do. There's some things I could do without.
Is one of them the Batmobile?
I can take half of the Batmobile. I think the tank stuff is a step too far. I would be very happy tooling around in the Batmobile. going into battle mode and fighting tanks in small arenas, I find a little bit boring and not quite in keeping with Batman.
Yeah, I also kind of wouldn't mind it if it wasn't so frequent and so repetitive. Like, there are only because you haven't got the kind of agility you've got when you're doing like hand-to-hand combat, it just feels a lot slower and becomes stale a lot quicker than the hand-to-hand stuff does. It's just not as interesting.
There's stuff I love. I like the remote control Batmobile stuff.
Yeah, that's cool.
To solve puzzles.
Yeah, that's really smart. Because that also, it fits with the core gameplay. It fits with what's come before in the Arkham series of games, whereas the tank combat really doesn't. It just...
No, it feels a bit like they have... I think I could probably have accepted it more if we'd had normal Batmobile in the earlier game, and then they'd added it in now as a kind of additional thing. But they throw so much stuff at you so quickly that of all the things, that's probably the thing that I would take out. Oh, and also the fact he's on his bloody wrist phone all of the time.
Oh, constantly.
And it's like, these people, just listen to their voices and drive about. They can do it in GTA, and those are normal people. They're not the greatest detective in the world, whereas Batman can't do anything without blabbing on to someone on his holographic wrist phone.
Yeah, and the other thing as well is, like, talking to them face to face with a hologram is not... If they were showing you data or something, I could understand, but it's just their face the whole time. It's not adding anything.
And they clearly have to unload some background data every time they do it to show those models. So it's just... It adds friction to an otherwise really nice open thing.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that really slows it down for me. It takes away that kind of the feeling of being powerful, that you have to just keep stopping because you're like, oh, okay, cool. Have you got to this shouldn't be a spoiler now. There's sections in the game where you kind of have like to stealth in tank mode. Have you got to those sections yet?
I haven't. No, I'm still relatively early on.
Those are pretty. If you don't like the arena combat, you're really going to hate those.
Oh wow, I've got that to look forward to.
Oh man.
But having said those negative things, I am still really.
No, it's a really good game. It's a really, really good game. I think the thing actually I dislike the most about the Batmobile though is, for me, the Arkham games are so much like the gliding in it feels very iconic almost. And that is like the most Batman feeling as well, where you're just gliding over the city. And then the Batmobile kind of takes away from that a little bit. You can still glide, but a lot of the times you're just like, oh, just get in the Batmobile and drive over there. And I think taking away from that feeling of his... And the other thing is, they've built this beautiful city that looks gorgeous from above, and they're like, nah, get down in like the tight streets of all that. That's not fun.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but it's still very cool both getting in and getting out of the
Batmobile.
So
that is the best bit.
Just to have those bits in it.
The transitions into and out of the Batmobile are like incredible. And the Batmobile's pathfinding seems to be very, very good. It can always find its way to you. Yeah, it's great. I personally, I've just about finished the main campaign, which is actually a lot. It was a lot stronger than I was expecting, because there was a couple of story beats that I felt were rather obvious, but there's a lot of stuff in there that is very, very unexpected. And they do good jobs at keeping it feeling it feels exciting right until the end. In terms of the story, that some of the missions feel a little bit stale, and kind of there's a couple of missions towards the end where you're a bit like, oh really? Okay. But the actual plot always feels like it's moving forwards, and the very end, the kind of finale, is just fantastically well done. And I very much approve of them. I very much approve of that. It's just a well written conclusion to the. If you ignore Origins, which I know that Rocksteady do, which says a lot about that game. But if you ignore Origins, it feels like a very fitting conclusion to that trilogy of games, which is, I think, what everyone wanted. And it also puts it in a place where it feels like, okay, this is a good place to stop with this series. You've done well. You've done well, Rocksteady. You've written a game that I have genuinely enjoyed the story of, which is quite rare in modern gaming.
Especially when it's Batman, who you're particularly precious and fond of.
Yes, I love Batman. So for them to do well with that character is a good thing, I feel. See, that wasn't too much Batman. That wasn't like last week.
It's all right. It's acceptable.
It wasn't just hours and hours of bloody Batman. But Kev, did you want to talk about this game that you're making?
Yeah, so I haven't talked about any of these for a bit because I haven't really done any for a bit. But I thought it was high tide I start again.
Doing time? Not high tide, high time.
Yeah, no, high tide. It's very. I'm kind of nautical based.
Okay.
In most of my phrases.
It's fine. Just thought I'd clarify.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. That's you're very right to point that out, and I would have done the same in your position.
You would
probably more mockery.
You would have.
So I appreciate that. This is just like total blue sky thinking, to use an awful buzzword of corporate nature. So I don't know if I've got the capability to make this, nor the time, nor the patience, nor the inclination. But with that caveat, my idea is this, right? So it's basically, it hops on board the whole play, create, share vibe. And so players would basically create robots by using like pieces. If you remember Spore, the Will Wright game, had like the creature creator with all the little parts and stuff, but they were all obviously creature and organic-y and stuff. Mine would be robots because I'm not good enough to program all the organic stuff, and therefore I can just like plug stuff into stuff. But the point is that you have a library of parts, and you can put together those things in any way, shape, or form that you see fit, right? Now, the key thing is you are basically creating an entrant into a sort of robot Olympics. And so then you enter your robot into the event, and like it will use the physics and the mechanics of the things that you've put onto it to like, either flop its way across the racetrack or, somehow power itself to get to the end of the thing. And then you can like compare your times to how other people did it, and like you can have YouTube videos, and everyone would get involved in the community, and it would be really fun.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the idea.
I kind of like the idea of Robot Olympics.
Yeah. I could have just said Robot Olympics, and that would have been...
It just sounds like the creativity aspects of that seem incredibly difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It's basically Robot Wars, but instead of fighting, they're competing in various sports.
I'm very on board with that. That would be cool.
Yeah. I just think that it's an exciting thing. Like, user-generated content is awesome. I mean, obviously, it's only going to be so long before you've got penis entrants doing, all of the sports and things. Because with
I will do it
user-generated
the day
content,
that you launch the game. I will be making a penis in that
I think
game.
you have to put some sort of a
penis filter.
A penis filter for anything with user-generated content in. Or at least the ability to go, this offends me, and flag it to other people.
Doesn't Sony have a specific team that only does that?
Just all day just looking for penises.
Penis hunter team, they call them.
Oh man, God, that would be a depressing job.
What do you do? Oh, I'm a cock hunter. Oh, what does that? Actually, I don't want to know. It's fine.
What are your thoughts on this here game design, James? As a game maker, man.
Well, I like it. I think people have attempted it before. There was a children's BBC show called Bamzuki, if I recall correctly, that did this to some degree.
Yes, I do remember that. That game show was good.
Bamzuki.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's been a couple of sort of large-scale attempts to do this sort of thing, and there was another one that I've completely forgotten the name of and didn't work at all. But it was Robot Wars, but virtual Robot Wars, and it was on the BBC, but it didn't last very long at all. And that's kind of similar to this thing as well. But my hope is one day, and this is probably not going to go much further than me saying, hey, this is a cool idea, and I'm going to try it and go, no, that was hard, and then stop trying it. But my hope is that one day, you don't need a robotics degree to enter the Robot Olympics, because you can just make it using these friendly, probably Little Big Planet-esque tools. to like snap bits onto your robot and go, oh, cool, I just need to win 3 more matches and then I can unlock the propeller to fly.
Yeah. It's the right time to be doing it because people are, with YouTubers craving content and all these things out and like physics-based games, people are really into emergent, weird, funny,
yeah, for sure,
crazy stuff happening. Minecraft does it, and Goat Simulator does it, and all those things. It's something where people are being competitive, but also have the option to just go absolutely wild. Is at the moment is the right thing to be doing. It's people love that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
yeah. It seems to be like people are. It's almost now a badge of honor if people go out of their way to kind of break your game to make it just do weird stuff.
Yeah. And I'm going to do it in Unity as well, whereas all my previous games have been in JavaScript. This one's going to be in Unity because, it's the future, isn't it?
And also your job is in Unity now.
Also, my job is in Unity, so it's kind of easier to...
It does make it simpler. Makes it a much easier thing. Was there any games you fancy talking about, James?
I haven't really done anything this week other than play more Destiny and Witcher, which I've spoken about both of at fair length.
The other 2 games that I've been playing this week have been Her Story, which I know you talked about last week at some length, and you can't really talk about without ruining.
No, it's a very difficult game. Like, you can't talk around it, really.
Part of the reason I was playing it was because while I was away in Amsterdam a couple of weeks ago for Unite, and I was in the airport, and I wanted to play Her Story, but I didn't have an internet connection. So instead of playing it, I made my own version of it.
Nice. That's a good way.
Based solely on my recollections of reading a review of it and nothing else.
Genius.
And then at the start of this week, I recorded a load of video for it with a puppet owl.
Oh, great!
I released that yesterday.
Oh, I'm going to have to check that out.
It's called Hoot Story, obviously.
Of course.
But what's amazing about it was that I thought, well, I've not read any spoilers. I've not seen anything other than this one review. There's no way that my version is going to ruin Her Story for anyone who's played it. Then I started playing Her Story, and I realised that one of the jokes that I put into my version had such a massive crossover with what Her Story does that I had to put a disclaimer on my download page saying, definitely play Her Story first, otherwise you might ruin it for yourself. It was just it was like a joke that I'd written years and years ago that I wanted to include in this thing just because it was extra content. And that was very strange.
Well, searching Google for Hoot Story gives me the film synopsis for the 2006 release Hoot, where Roy Eberhardt has moved so often he's lost track of how many times he's changed schools. After moving from Montana to Florida's Gulf Coast, he befriends Beatrice and her brother. The siblings show Roy their hideaway where they secretly take care of a flock of wild owls. When they learn that a restaurant will be built where the owls live, the 3 decide to enlist the help of a local policeman to save the birds. That is the end of the synopsis.
That sounds incredible. I'm definitely going to watch that.
It's currently standing at 26% on Rotten Tomatoes, so you're in for a good one.
I kind of think this would be an amazing way to do a game jam, though. Like, you start to do a game jam, and a week beforehand, you're given a review to read, and you're not allowed to make any notes on it. And then when you get to the game jam, you have to make a game based on that review you read a week ago and what you can remember of it.
Oh, that's essentially what I did with this.
No, that's what I mean. Yeah, it would be a fabulous way of just doing a game jam, is just make people to do it. That'd be great.
If you actually want to find it, go on itch.io and search for Hoot Story, and you'll find it there.
I am going to try and give that a look. That sounds great. Anything else?
I've just started playing Rocket League, which is on.
I've downloaded it. I haven't launched it up yet though.
And it's basically the same game as the game they released for PS3, which is called
Super Acrobatic Powered Rocket Launching Wizard Monkey Cars. Yeah,
that one. Yeah, but they've given it a simpler name and made it look a lot more shiny.
Well,
they've given it away, which means there's loads of more people in the lobbies, which is really good.
Yeah, that is good, actually. I need to download that because it sounds bonkers.
Yeah.
It's really kind of tight in terms of how it plays. You always feel like if you mess up, it's your fault. And if you do well, it's you doing well.
Yeah.
It seems like it's been kind of balanced the hell out. Which
that's good. Physics games can quite often feel like, this game's not doing it right, which is a terrible player experience. So to be empowered to feel like I am awesome at this is a good thing, especially when it comes to physics games, I think.
Most of the time I'm finding that I'm angry at other players on my team rather than the game or myself, which is, I think, is a good sign. But I can imagine teams of 3 or 4 getting together and becoming incredibly good at it and doing trick shots and doing amazing kind of aerial shots and things in it. I think that would be, it's one of those games that I hope has got the kind of potential to be a bigger thing and kind of become a really solid online experience that people kind of keep playing for a long time.
Yeah. It definitely, I think it's because it's it just seems to be one of those games that there's so much buzz around it now, and it's even in TSA staff, but people just begging, like last night in the TSA Slack channel, just going, hey, who wants to play this? And that's always great when you've got people just going, come on, we need to play. We need to be playing this game. What's going on? Which the only time I've seen that recently, the only other game I ever see that with is Destiny. That's quite a compliment, really, to Rocket League. But yeah,
and simplifying the name was a good idea.
Yes, very good idea.
It's a bit of a shame, but it's a good idea in terms of long-term success, I think.
Yeah, exactly. It's when people have to abbreviate your game to be able to have any hope, that's not a great sign.
I don't think I've ever successfully said it.
No, I don't
think anyone has. Not without it in front of them. That's the only way you could possibly do it. Right, in that case, we shall move on to question time.
Question times.
Yeah, it is question time.
Sort of
quickly coming back, Adam Guest, 1985. He says hello because I had a go at him last week and then he got cross with me this week.
Well, I still missed the hello part of the show, didn't he?
He's done better, though. Done better this week.
I'm not saying it.
Peter Chapman says, what's been your favourite single game mechanic or system this year? Could even be from a game you dislike. I'm trying to think, what have I really liked this year that I've actually... Her Story is really up there, actually. Just kind of the exploration mechanic in Her Story feels very distinct and unique.
I'm suddenly faced with the problem that I can't remember any games that I've played this year.
That's always a problem.
I like the way that the SimCity mobile game makes you wait. I think that's a great mechanic. Can you just stop playing the game for a bit, please?
Yeah, please.
That's nice.
Yeah, I think you're having too much fun. Go and do something else for a while. Come back. It'll be fine. Anything you've any kind of mechanics that have really shone for you, James?
I guess it was tail end of last year, but I think adding double jumps to Call of Duty has made it a better game.
I've heard. I'm not a big Call of Duty player, but I've heard that from a lot of people that it's just made it completely kind of reshaped the multiplayer.
It's kind of a shame that they had to do it because, you know, they're basically going, yeah, okay, well, Halo and Destiny are better in that regard, so we'll do it. But it's, you know, it's good, and it's like Max having a right click. You know, they just went hands up, fair enough. That is better than having to press a button and click.
Yeah. I think something I actually really liked from this year with going back to Batman. I really like, because it's just really fresh in my mind. But I really like the switching you can do in combat, where you can switch between characters, because it's just that would be for me a potentially really easy point to break the flow of that combat. And the fact that they've managed to keep it in there, and the fact that you can do stuff like double takedowns, etc.
I really want to play Batman, but with The Witcher, I just don't imagine me playing another game for another year or so.
There's a lot going on in The Witcher.
Not because I'm enjoying The Witcher so much, just because I play games quite infrequently and it's so very big.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's more the fact there's just so much Witcher.
Yeah, I still don't understand how Lewis possibly managed to complete it all in about 3 days.
I finished it and Batman.
Yeah, what, like...
Fucking hell.
He's doing some Harry Potter time-turning nonsense,
sure.
I think.
I think if I played all the games this year, most people will have said the Nemesis system in Shadow of Mordor.
Yeah, if you're talking about
brand new mechanic.
Yes.
I was going to say that, and I couldn't remember if that was this year or last year.
That was last year, but
I'll sack that off then.
But it was that's because I was going to mention that as well, because that was a great new
I really liked
a mechanic.
I thought it was awesome. I hated Lorm the Hornblower so much because he was like a crossbow user, and he'd killed me like 4 times and been so promoted, and he didn't deserve it. I hated him.
But it is kind of a mechanic that is, I think, it's a good mechanic because people are now saying we would like to see this in other games, please. And that's when you know you're really onto something, I think. When it's not just something that works in context, when people are going, no, we want to see this in more stuff.
And it's brave and impressive for a AAA as well to go like, let's do a new thing.
Yeah, do something brand new.
It's hard to convince, studio bosses and publishers and all that like doing a new thing is going to be a good thing. So yeah.
And also as a way of telling kind of emergent stories and allowing players to define their own context for how a game story works. It's kind of bold and interesting as well. And that's why it will be good to put into other games, not necessarily because it's inherently a good mechanic, but it allows so many more options for how to take a non-linear game or even a linear game with kind of side quests and things. It gives loads of opportunities to designers and writers and things to do more interesting stuff.
We've also been asked by Kevling, is anyone watching Mr. Robot, which is a show I've heard a lot about but I haven't had a chance to watch.
Mr. Robot.
It's kind of a show about hacking, but it seems that someone's actually done it in a way that is almost realistic. Like it's got some social engineering stuff in there. It's got a guy who's kind of slightly, I don't know if autistic, no, Asperger's, I guess. But he's kind of very socially awkward and kind of very just hangs out by himself a lot. It seems like it's a really interesting show that is doing its best to portray stuff in a way that is not completely ridiculous and just Hollywooded. So it's definitely worth a watch from what I've heard, but I have not had a chance to watch it myself.
I have been watching Humans, which is also about a TV show about robots, sort of.
Mr. Robot is not about robots.
Oh. I may have stopped listening briefly.
It's about hackers, but yeah.
I've not watched Mr. Robot, but I have watched Humans. So
both. I haven't watched Humans, but both of you feel free to talk about Humans. Go for it.
Well, I've only watched the first 3 episodes, I think, so I'm still catching up. But it's a series set in a sort of near-ish future where they have synthetic humanoids called synths who are basically indistinguishable from humans, except they're so deep into the uncanny valley because just like the acting is brilliant, like especially from the main ones. The way they move about and the way they speak is so close to being normal human, but then there's just something about it which isn't. And yeah,
they're so good at acting that sometimes I think they're CG.
Yeah,
it's really weird.
It's it's a great performance, and the kind of the story is basically there's like some special ones that can emote in a sort of relatively AI cliche, but like it's good. It doesn't take the directions you think it's going to take at all, and and so it kind of focuses on this family who have got a synth, and it's good. And I'm not going to say any more than that because it'll spoil things, but. It's worth watching, definitely. You can catch up. It's on All 4, or is that what they're calling their catch-up service now? All 4?
Yeah, it's not called 4OD anymore, is it?
Yeah. And there's still no PlayStation 4 version of it, which sucks.
It's incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
We've also been asked to watch a trailer, but we haven't watched it, so... But apparently the trailer for the new Transformers game looks cool.
Interesting.
If you haven't watched that, go watch it. I guess it's cool.
Oh, is that the one that Platinum
yeah, it's the one that looks like
making?
Looks like the 80s cartoon.
Transformers cartoon rather than Transformers films.
Yeah, it looks like the 80s cartoon properly. Like
it looks really, really nice.
Yeah.
I'm proper excited about that.
Here, I shall send.
As you can tell from my voice.
I shall send you the link to the new thing, and you can watch it after we've finished. But yeah, apparently it's a good trailer from what I have been told. That's going to do it. I don't think we've got any more questions, so that will wrap it up for this episode of the Sixth Axis podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us, James.
It was a pleasure.
If you would like to get more of the podcast, you can go over to TheSixthAxis.com. If you would like to get it in other places, you can go to iTunes, you can go to SoundCloud.com /TheSixthAxis. You can go to the Stitcher podcast app. You can go to YouTube. We are slightly behind at the minute on YouTube, I think. But the episodes are still going up there with audio only. Where else? I think that's all the places you can get it at the minute. Or just in your general podcast apps, it should be there. If you want to get in touch with us, you can email us at podcasts@sixthaxis.com, or you can tweet us at TSA Podcast. If you'd like to get in touch with us personally, you can get me on Twitter as HalPro. It's HALB Pro. You can get Kevin Draw for 100. You can get James as games writing, I believe it is, James.
Yeah, that's right. That's where I do my kind of general blither.
Yep.
If you're only interested in kind of announcements and stuff, then at Groundshatter is probably the best thing to do.
Yep. And you can also go over to groundshatter.com if you want to get the updates on what is going on with SkyScrappers and that, and follow along there.
It's a very yellow website.
I do like how yellow it is, to be honest.
It's my corporate colour. It's
I like
strong hashtag branding.
Yeah, exactly.
But
very on
with
brand.
this brand new 27-inch 5K Retina display MacBook that I've got, it's a whole world of yellow. I'm like surrounded by yellow
There's
now.
so many pixels and they're all yellow.
Yeah.
I did. Oh, I'm extending the podcast unnecessarily now. When I did my presentation at Unite the other week, I had my slides with my corporate colours on, but the screen was so big in the room that I was worried.
You lit the room up in your corporate
Everyone
colours.
looked really jaundiced, so I made it all black and white, so it would fit in a bit better.
Fabulous. Right, that is going to wrap us up, though. Thank you all for listening. Thank you again, James, for joining us. We will be back next week, but for now, say goodbye, everybody.
Ta-ra!
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Goodbye.
The Sixth Axis Podcast.